Hello everyone, this is Bill with Yarn Crafts for Lefties. Today we're going to be learning how to brioche knit. Brioche is the type of fabric that creates this really beautiful, squishy, warm fabric. When we look at it, it very much resembles 1 by 1 rib. I promise you, it is not, even though it looks like it. Brioche itself needs us to consider a couple of things. First one, when we're making something with brioche, it's going to use twice as much yarn as regular knitting does. So if you are freehanding a brioche scarf like this one, in worsted weight yarn, most scarves will take about 350 to 400 yards in order to make a full scarf. With brioche knitting, you would actually need about 700 to 800 yards in order to do a scarf in worsted weight in this basic brioche fabric. Second thing to keep in mind, when we approach brioche, we are always working in pairs. Our stitches pair up. It always falls into a pairing of a single stitch, then a pair of stitches. Single stitch, pair of stitches. Single stitch, pair of stitches. With the pair of stitches falling over what would look like our knit column. These two stitches we will always combine together. That's part of brioche. The third thing to remember, it takes working a right side row and a wrong side row in order to complete one full row of brioche. In regular knitting, we work a right side row, we've completed a row, and our fabric has grown in height. We do the wrong side row, we've completed a second row, and our fabric has grown another row in height. With brioche, the right side row does half of the growth. The wrong side row finishes the growth. So you have to work a right and a wrong side row to actually create one row of height. So, enough of the technical aspect. Let's get into the fun stuff, which is the knitting. So let me set this fabric down, and I'm going to pick up my preset needle, which all I've done here is I have cast on using an even number of stitches. When you cast on with brioche, you really do want to make sure that you use a very stretchy cast on. The cast on needs to have give. If it does not have give, it's going to pull in the bottom of your fabric. See how here this falls in a nice clean line? That's what you want. If you use a tight cast on, it's going to pucker in like this, and we don't want that to happen. We want it to fall and show all of its beauty. So here I've cast on 10 stitches, and I've only done 10 just so that way this can show you what you need to see without watching me knit for a long time. Now, I'm going to let my yarn drop down, and I'm just going to turn my work like I normally would in order to start. Every row in even-numbered brioche cast on is going to begin with a yarn over. Now, whenever I tell people this, the first thing they say is, how do I make a yarn over? There's nothing for it to attach to. Initially, that's truly the case because we aren't working a stitch yet. So I'm going to set my hand up in order to be ready to knit Continental, but I'm going to leave my working yarn dangling for a second so you can see what I'm doing. Notice the working yarn carries through behind my right hand needle. All I'm going to do is take my left hand needle and see this hole right here? I'm going to put the needle right through it, from back to front. And now we have the working yarn going around my left-hand needle, but still to the back of my work. Now I'll snug it up, and that is the beginning of my yarn over. I will take the tip of my left-hand finger and just put it in front of that yarn to hold it in place. This is the start of the yarn over. The yarn over will become fixed in place when we work this stitch right here. Now this is our setup row. So I start with my yarn over. I'm going to slip the next stitch as if to purl. I'll take the tip of my right-hand needle, my left-hand needle, go from left to right under the front leg of the stitch, just like I would to make a purl stitch. Then I'm simply going to slide it off of my right-hand needle and leave it on my left-hand needle. You can see my working yarn is still going over my left-hand needle to the back of my work. Now I'm going to knit the next stitch. When I knit that stitch, my yarn over will now stay in place. We can see it going through and under that yarn, and I can slide that right off. And now I have a pair of stitches and a single stitch. For the rest of the row, I'm going to do a yarn over, slip as if to purl, knit, yarn over, slip as if to purl, knit, yarn over, slip as if to purl, knit. And then we'll finish out this row, yarn over, slip as if to knit, slip as if to purl, then knit. And I have finished my setup row. And when we look at what we've finished, we have a pair and a single. This is actually a pair. It'll be easier to see on the other side. In a single, pair, single, pair, single, pair, single. This is not necessarily adding extra stitches. This is creating the bulk that is going to give the brioche its squishiness. Now I'll turn my work, and when I turn it, we can see everything is set up in a one, a single, and a pair, a single, and a pair. And the first time I did brioche knitting, I looked at this pair and I thought I did something wrong. Because if I saw that in regular knitting, I'd be thinking I made a mistake. This is not a mistake in brioche knitting. This is what you want. So from here on out, this is a one row repeat. All we're going to do is a yarn over, slip as if to purl, and then a brioche knit, which is what happens at this pair. A brioche knit is the equivalent of a knit two together in regular knitting. The reason I am going to use the term brioche knit is in a pattern that is written with brioche abbreviations. We'll call this a brioche knit, or you'll see it abbreviated or sometimes spoken as a Burke. That's a B as in boy, R as in Robert, K as in kite. B-R-K. Sounds complicated? Super easy. So first thing I need to do is a yarn over at the start of my row. I'm just going to take my needle and bring it right through that space in the yarn. That's my temporary yarn over. I will slip the next stitch as if to purl. This is the brioche knit I was talking about that we've reached. If you've done a knit two together, you can do a brioche knit. I'm just going to go through both of those stitches, catch my yarn, bring it through, and slide off. That simple. From here on out, our yarn overs are the normal yarn over, slip as if to purl, and that yarn over becomes fixed in place when we work our brioche knit, or knit two together, whichever is easier for you to keep in your mind. Yarn over, slip as if to purl, brioche knit. Yarn over, slip as if to purl, brioche knit. Yarn over, slip as if to purl, brioche knit. Now we've completed one of two rows. Remember, in brioche, it takes a right side and a wrong side row in order to complete one actual row of brioche fabric. I've turned my work. Here's my working yarn. If you need to slide it down a bit to make that space, do it. Take the tip of my needle, slide it through the space so the yarn is going around my needle. Tip of my finger to secure it. Slip the very first stitch on the row as if to purl. Then knit the two together, or in brioche terminology, brioche knit. Yarn over, slip as if to purl, brioche knit. Yarn over, slip as if to purl, brioche knit. Whoops, lost my yarn. That happens. There we go. Yarn over, slip as if to knit, brioche knit. I'm reaching the end of my row. Finish with my brioche knit. And that, my friends, is really the entirety of brioche knitting. That simple repeat is what created this loveliness. When it comes to binding off, simply use any stretchy bind off, or if you're not going to use something that's really stretchy, increase your needle size by 1 and use that to cast off, or just cast off nice and loose. What you don't want to do is use something that pulls fabric in, because you don't want this sort of bunching to happen. So I hope you enjoyed this video from Yarn Crafts for Lefties. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and set yourself up for alerts. That way you know when the next video has shown up. Thank you very much, and happy knitting!